when Dogman comes knocking at your door. Dear Scary Stories NYC, have you ever expected a friend to come over, heard a knock outside, then automatically opened the door without even looking out there first? Nah, me neither. But my reason for always checking first is because one time, when I looked through the peephole, I saw the Dogman, him or her or itself, standing on my front porch. We don't want to give our name or address, but my wife and I are fine with telling you that we live in Whitewater, Wisconsin. Both of us now technically work from home over 90% of the time, but when we have to go into the office, Doris heads into Milwaukee, which is an hour's drive away, while I head south to Chicago, Illinois, which is a 2-hour drive away. We're kind of a multi-function suburb, you might say. Doris says that Whitewater swings both ways, Milwaukee or Chicago. I have to say, though, in the last couple of years of sticking so close to home, we've come to feel more like we live in the country than the suburbs. Maybe half the difference between the burbs and the sticks is just mental. If you commute daily, then you feel like you're in the suburbs. But if you wake up to birds singing out your window, and they're still singing to you at lunchtime, you start to feel different about yourself and the whole world. At least, potentially, that can start to happen. The next illogical step in this way of thinking for me is that maybe when you feel like you're in the suburbs, you only notice things that you expect to find in the suburbs. But maybe if you start to feel inside like you're living out in the country, then you start to notice the cryptids. Like maybe they were always there, but you didn't hear them because you had your headphones on. Or maybe you didn't see them because you were staring at your phone. Now the thing is, Doris and I now think that we encountered this Dogman creature before it came to our door that night. We think it might have followed us home, but in our first encounter, we did not get a good enough look at the thing to understand that it was what it was. It was only later that we put these two together. I'm going to tell you both accounts in the order they took place in, even though we aren't 100% certain that they are related. In our gut, we agree it was the same creature both times, but like so many things related to cryptids, we can't even begin to attempt to prove that. So one night Doris and I were driving home from Fort Atkinson, where we had gone to a dinner theater, and we were both in relaxed moods. We were driving along Cold Springs Road there through the swampy, marshy area. There's a little spot where you can pull your car in and look out at the reeds in the water past them. You gotta be careful in the dark not to drive right into the drink there, but if you live through the parking, you got yourself a nifty little lover's lane, only large enough for your one car. I know that we're adults, and I know that we own our own home, but we still sometimes enjoy a good night out in nature. Well, actually, I'm not sure if Doris still does, not after this creepy encounter. So I was in the mood for snuggling, but Doris was uneasy right from the start. She kept saying that something was different, and she couldn't put her finger on what. We heard a howling, and it sounded really close. I told myself internally that it's just a dog or a coyote, and that we were safe in the car in either case. Somehow, though, I wasn't sure if I believed myself, and I have to admit that I was beginning already to feel exposed, and possibly in danger. Then, Doris gasped and pointed out eyeshine behind this one tree in the darkness. I saw what she was talking about, and suddenly, before I could react in any way, someone or something began shaking that tree violently. This was not a sapling, it was a grown tree, and whatever was doing that had to be pretty strong. I started the engine and the headlights came on, but the tree stopped shaking at that moment, and we could not see who or what had been behind it. I backed up out of there and took us straight home. We weren't sure if we'd been harassed by a big, strong homeless person, or maybe a crazed bear, but the one thing we felt certain of was that the incident was over. The way we look at it now, though, that was only the beginning, and it was a mistake for us to head so directly home. So Whitewater is a college town and fairly densely populated, but we lucked out in getting ourselves a house outside of the main traffic areas, set back into the woods just a little bit. At least, it felt lucky when we moved in. Now I'm beginning to wonder if we figured out why we got the place so cheap. Maybe the fact that we're surrounded by faculty and other kinds of college workers makes us feel a little more isolated. Being set back in the woods, working from home, and a dearth of close friends locally all combine to create that feeling of being off in the middle of nowhere an awful lot of the time. I talk to far more people on video chat each day than I do in person, for example. That was part of the reason why that night, when someone or something banged on our front door, Doris and I both looked at each other like, who did you invite over without telling me? Besides pizza delivery and the mail lady, I don't think we've had anyone knock on that door in a very long time. I was hoping she would be curious enough to answer, but when I saw the fear in her eyes, I realized it was my job to handle the scary things. So I walked to the door, wondering if I should ask out loud who was out there. I mean, what if it was Terminator 2 and we'd be better off pretending we weren't there? So I stayed silent and creeped up to the front door, then stood on my toes to look out the peephole built very far up into this particular door by the previous owner. What I saw, you have roughly illustrated in your thumbnail. It was a face with many canine features that also somehow seemed strangely human. I was seeing an upright walking hairy creature that I can understand people comparing to a dog. Maybe it was because of the wide-angle effect of the tiny peephole, but I noticed the thing's shoulders as much as its head, since the head was buried down in those masses. There was little else to see, as the Dogman appeared to be looking right back at me as I was looking at it. Now, I was not braced for seeing that, and I reacted in fear, taking a step backward and tripping on the edge of the rug. I fell, grabbing out for the potted plants next to the window to right myself, but instead succeeding in bringing a few of them crashing down loudly next to me as I banged myself in a few different places and shouted out in surprise and pain. Doris was approaching me fast, and I was about to tell her that I was fine when she leaped over my prone form and ran to one of the side windows to get a look for herself at what was happening outside. Doris screamed like she was the star of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. She seemed to be screaming incoherently, but after a while, I understood that she was screaming at me to take a picture. She turned on the outside lights and I got the idea, running off to get my phone to take a picture of this thing outside. But by the time I got back, the creature had run off. Doris was eventually able to calm down enough to tell me that the Dogman ran away when she turned on the outside lights. That was our first evidence that it disliked lights, and possibly might also dislike having its picture taken. The upshot of this story is that my wife ordered 2 trap cameras for both the front and back doors, and my rich uncle paid for us to get Ring. That uncle is a huge fan of cryptids, I guess you might say. He probably would be a cryptid hunter, except he lives in Jersey City and works in downtown Manhattan. I don't think there are many cryptids over there. That's not even close to the Jersey Devil, to be honest. We use the Ring cameras for the doors now, and we have the 2 trap cameras hanging in 2 other locations where things might lurk in the dark on our property. At first we had high hopes of finding something in the photos, but after getting no interesting results for a couple weeks, we started Googling to find out what other people had captured. It doesn't seem that cryptids enjoy being photographed, and so we've basically given up hope of catching proof of the existence of these Dogmen. Don't get me wrong, we have no plans of taking the cameras down. If we can't find a way to prove that the Dogman is real, at least the cameras keep this potentially life-threatening creature or being off our property at night. And that's something that apparently no other kind of security can guarantee for you. So, brother or sister, let me ask you this. What are you gonna do when Dogman comes knocking at your door? Who donates the most often? I don't even have to guess. A kind-wise benefactor known only as CS. Nobody knows who CS is, but everybody knows that we wouldn't have survived this long without her or him or them. The most recent way in which this real-life superhero has helped us out is by using the thanks button under each and every one of our videos. That's kinda like a super chat, but for those of us who can't or don't do live streams. With the recent algorithm changes here on YouTube, some of us scary channels for some reason are finding ourselves shut out in the cold a bit, and without angels like CS investing in our future, we already wouldn't have a present. So if you like what we do, please say thanks to CS and the other executive producers who have kept us going this far. And now here's Henry Lee Dogman to share more information. Hank? Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.